The weight of ordinary days. The Morales family lived in a small apartment on the edge of the city, in a neighborhood most people only noticed when they passed through it on their way somewhere better. The building was old, with narrow stairs and walls that carried the echoes of other lives, arguments, laughter, music, and silence. It was not a place of dreams, but it was a place of persistence. Every morning began the same way. Rosa Morales woke up before the sun. She moved quietly through the kitchen, careful not to wake her children, preparing coffee that was more water than anything else. The smell filled the apartment, warm and familiar. It was her moment of calm before the day demanded everything from her again. Her husband, Luis, worked construction when there was work. Some weeks were good. Others were empty. The uncertainty weighed on him more heavily than the physical labor ever had. He often left the apartment early, tools in hand, hoping that the foreman would need one more worker that day. Their children, Mateo and Sofia, shared a small room. Mateo was 16 and already felt older than his age. He understood too much. Sofia, 10, still believed that effort always led to reward, a belief her parents quietly protected. Breakfast was simple: bread, coffee, sometimes eggs if they were lucky. Conversation was gentle, careful. No one spoke about bills or debts at the table. Those topics were reserved for late nights, whispered in the kitchen after the children were asleep. Despite everything, there was order in their routine. School, work, dinner, homework, sleep. Life moved forward not because it was easy, but because stopping was not an option. Mateo did well in school. His teachers often told him he had potential, a word that both inspired and frightened him. Potential meant expectations, and expectations meant pressure. He worked part-time at a small grocery store after classes, helping his family with what little he earned. He never complained, but inside, he wondered how long effort alone could carry him. Sofia loved to draw. She filled notebooks with houses, people, and imaginary places where everyone smiled. Her parents praised her creativity, though they knew art was rarely kind to people who depended on it for survival. One evening, everything shifted slightly, not dramatically, but enough to be felt. Luis came home earlier than usual. His shoulders were tense, his face tired in a way Rosa recognized immediately. There had been an accident at the site. Nothing serious, but enough for work to stop for several days. Several days meant no pay. They did the math in silence. Rent, electricity, food. Something would have to wait. That night, Rosa lay awake listening to the city outside. She thought about the years behind her, jobs she had left, dreams she had postponed, promises she had made to herself when she was younger. She did not regret her family, but she wondered who she might have been in a different life. The days that followed were heavier. Mateo started working extra shifts. His grades slipped slightly, not enough to fail, but enough for his teachers to notice. Sofia stopped asking for new pencils or notebooks. She learned quickly how to be small when necessary. One afternoon, Mateo received a letter. It was from a public university. He had been accepted into a program that offered partial financial aid. Not enough to cover everything, but enough to make the possibility real. For the first time in years, something good arrived without being chased. The family celebrated quietly that night. There was no special dinner, only smiles and cautious hope. Luis hugged his son longer than usual. Rosa cried in the bathroom, where no one could see her. But hope, like everything else, came with conditions. The financial aid required consistent grades and full-time study. That meant Mateo would need to quit his job. The money he brought home would disappear. The apartment would feel smaller without it. They talked for hours. Luis wanted Mateo to go. Rosa was afraid. Mateo said very little. He felt torn between loyalty and ambition, between staying and becoming something else. In the end, the decision was made not because it was perfect, but because it was necessary. Mateo enrolled. The months that followed were difficult. Bills piled up more often. Rosa took extra cleaning jobs. Luis accepted lower pay when he had to. Sofia helped more at home, growing quieter, more observant. Mateo studied constantly. He felt guilt every time he opened a textbook instead of working. He felt guilt every time he succeeded. Life did not suddenly improve. There were no dramatic transformations, no sudden wealth. The apartment remained the same. The neighborhood did not change. But something subtle shifted. They spoke more openly. They argued more honestly. They learned to accept frustration without letting it destroy them. Years later, Matteo would not be rich. He would not escape struggle completely. But he would have stability, and sometimes that is its own form of success. On a quiet evening, long after Sophia had fallen asleep and the city lights flickered outside the window, Rosa looked around the kitchen she had stood in for decades. The walls were still old. The table still small. But the weight of ordinary days felt lighter than before. Not because life had become easy, but because they had learned how to carry it together. The day everything finally made sense. Every morning, Daniel woke up before the sun. The small alarm clock on his bedside table rang at 6, and even though he wanted to stay under the warm blanket, he always got up. His house was quiet at that hour. The walls were thin, the furniture was old, and the floor made soft noises when he walked, but it was home. Daniel lived with his mother and his younger sister in a modest neighborhood. His mother worked long hours cleaning offices in the city, and she left the house before Daniel went to school. Most mornings, she prepared breakfast the night before, leaving notes written in simple handwriting, "Good luck today," or "Study hard." Daniel always read those notes carefully and folded them into his backpack. School had never been easy for Daniel. He was not the kind of student who understood things immediately. He needed time, repetition, and patience. In the past, his report cards were full of comments like, "needs improvement," or "can do better." Some teachers believed in him, but others had already decided what kind of student he was. That particular day felt different from the moment he entered the school building. The hallways smelled of cleaning products and old books. Students talked loudly, laughing and complaining about exams. Daniel walked to his classroom holding his backpack tightly. It was the last day of exams, and he was about to receive his final results. As he sat at his desk, his mind went back to the previous months. He remembered studying late at night while his sister slept, reading under a small lamp because the main light was broken. He remembered asking questions even when he felt embarrassed, staying after class to understand math problems, and failing practice tests more than once. There were moments when he wanted to give up, when he felt tired and frustrated, but something always pushed him to continue. When the teacher finally entered the classroom, the noise slowly disappeared. Papers were placed on desks, names were called, and students reacted in different ways. Some smiled immediately. Others frowned or sighed. Daniel waited, his heart beating faster with every second. When his paper landed on his desk, he did not look at it right away. He took a deep breath and reminded himself that he had done his best. Slowly, he turned the page. He had passed. Not only one subject, but all of them. For a moment, he thought it was a mistake. He read the results again and again. Math, science, history, language, every subject was marked as passed. His final grades were not perfect, but they were solid, honest, real. A quiet smile appeared on his face. He did not shout or celebrate loudly like some of his classmates. Instead, he felt something deeper, relief, pride, a calm happiness he had never felt before. The rest of the school day passed quickly. Classes ended early, and students rushed out of the building. Daniel walked home instead of taking the bus, even though it took longer. He wanted time to think. The streets were familiar, filled with small stores, dogs sleeping in the shade, and neighbors sitting outside their houses. As he walked, Daniel thought about his mother. He imagined her tired face after work, her hands rough from cleaning, her constant worry about money. He thought about how many times she told him that education was the one thing no one could take away from him. He had not always believed her, but that day, her words finally made sense. When he arrived home, the house was quiet. His sister was at a neighbor's house, and his mother had not returned yet. Daniel placed his backpack on the table and took out the report card once more. He looked at it carefully, as if it could disappear if he didn't. Later that evening, the sound of keys at the door made him stand up immediately. His mother entered, tired but smiling softly. Daniel did not wait. He walked toward her and handed her the paper without saying a word. She read it slowly. Her eyes moved from line to line, and then she stopped. She read it again, just like Daniel had done earlier. When she finally looked up, her eyes were full of emotion. She did not cry dramatically or shout with joy. She simply hugged him tightly, holding him longer than usual. In that hug, Daniel felt something powerful: recognition. Not just for the grades, but for the effort, the discipline, and the determination behind them. That night, dinner was simple rice, beans, and eggs, but it felt special. They talked about the future, about new goals, about possibilities that once seemed far away. There were no promises of an easy life or sudden success. Just the understanding that progress was real, even if it was slow. Before going to bed, Daniel placed his report card inside a notebook. He knew challenges would continue. School would not magically become easy, and life would still be difficult. But that day had changed something inside him. For the first time, Daniel truly believed that his effort mattered, and that belief would follow him long after that day was over.